bridge collapsed. The mountain road washed out. All the signs are obscured by fog. Your only directions are detours. Eventually it dawns on you. Sometimes you need to get lost to discover where you're supposed to be. Welcome to Merlin's Barn.
Welcome to yet another episode of Merlin's Barn. We appreciate you continuing to listen despite your therapists and family members and psychiatrists' objections otherwise. This evening we are going to start off with the new edition, the fortune cookies. And we have an addition tonight. We have
Tasha.
We have Tasha with us. And
Matt's here again tonight.
And
although he's just a little sad because Merlin took his fortune cookie away, so I wouldn't crinkle it during the opening.
Okay, fortune cookies are now being distributed. You can...
Yay, I can crinkle!
Crinkle to your heart's delight.
Earlier tonight, Merlin got this incredible fortune cookie. I think it's a follow-on from a previous time.
Earlier he got no fortune in his fortune cookie.
That's
that
right.
Was
Actually, his first one was a blank.
Yeah.
His second one was, don't miss out on your chance to win big.
What? Wait, I didn't see that one. Well, that's the back side of it.
What's the back side?
That's the back side. The front side was specifically for The Librarian, which is a lifetime of inspiring books will enlighten your mind. This is my job every single day. This goes back to the one I mentioned last week where it said don't walk in the mud. I had like a day of getting my truck stuck in the mud. Yay. So who wants to start us off?
Go for it, Tasha.
Okay. Opening cookies. Ah. All right, what I got? Today, your inner strength will shine.
Okay. Are we inspired? Do we feel our lives have been changed?
It may be apropos for the first podcast recording.
There you go.
Wow. Am I allowed to eat the cookie?
Yes, you can eat the cookie.
Please do. Mouth noises are great on the radio. Oh, see, I got the same one. I don't miss out on your chance to win big because I didn't read the correct
side. I was trying to figure out what you were talking about earlier. You were like, don't miss out on your chance to win. I'm like, what's the back?
Usually the backside sounds like your lucky numbers.
Oh, okay.
So I was actually thrown off. Seek out diverse viewpoints to broaden your perspective. That's not a fortune. That's not bad advice, but it's not a fortune.
It's good advice. It's good advice.
It's not a proverb.
A lot of people on social media should possibly get out of their echo chambers and follow that.
Seek out diverse viewpoints. That might happen tonight.
Okay, so now we'll go and we'll see if I got a fortune or not. Now that we know it's not, this is your lucky number or whatever the backside is. Don't miss out on your chance. Buy Hoover vacuum cleaners. Kindness is the antidote to negativity. Be kind, folks. And don't miss out on your chance to win big. Lucky numbers 54, 40, 31, 11, 28, and 4.
Oh, do you still want me to do the
We'll do that at some other point.
Okay.
At some point, we're just going to have Tasha start reading the numbers off the back of these, like the number stations that broadcast out of Russia.
I'm looking for sleeper cells.
If you go to gps-coordinates.org and enter those numbers into the decimal degrees, latitude and longitude, you can find out your location. Apparently, earlier, Merlin was in Armenia.
So that's something else you can try with your numbers on the fortune cookies. And we still want to find misfortune cookies that actually look like the regular fortune cookies and just start leaving them in Chinese restaurants mixed in. Like things that read things like, today a piano will fall on your head. Or wonderful things like that.
That is the most beautiful form of
Watch out for
practical joke.
quicksand.
I feel you never actually, it's a commitment to the bit because you never see the result.
Yeah, no, I agree. But just knowing that I have sown that little piece of chaos in somebody's life,
like that
makes
time I
just makes me
inverted
happy.
someone's halfway completed jigsaw puzzle.
Wait, so what's that about the jigsaw puzzle?
I and another person, we used cardboard and clamped it firmly to the table the jigsaw puzzle was on, turned the table upside down, slid the table back, and then slid the puzzle back onto the table, completely inverted, then inverted every piece that was still in the box. And then I left. I do not know what happened.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful chaos.
I would have to say I was
Pause.
present for the result of this one. The inverting reminds me of it, where the first thing we did was we would stay at a friend's house in Fredericksburg when we were going to like reenactments or getting together down there to do something. And one day he went off to work and left us all in the house, which probably was not a good idea. So my friend Scott decided that the wonderful thing to do would be to reverse his living room, which was furniture, artwork, everything. Everything was reversed, hung upside down if it was physically possible.
Is this the person's house that I'm thinking of?
Yes, it's Mike's.
No, I saw that. I thought.
So we did that, and he came home and actually liked it. He saw it as an improvement. And then Scott sat there for the rest of the evening saying, just dropping little things like, "You should check your Stratego game." And Mike's like opening up the box, going, "What have you done to it? What have you done to it?" Literally nothing. We're just messing with you at this point. But in furthering the reversals, he's it was either this time or the following time we were there. We reversed. We noticed his refrigerator was being held shut with duct tape because it kept just opening. And we fixed this in the process. We just looked at the fridge one day and we're like, "Oh, the hinges can be moved to the other side and the handle can be moved." So we just one night changed the hinges on the refrigerator doors and the handles to the opposite sides, inadvertently fixing the problem he was having. So the duct tape was no longer needed, but we put it back up, and that was just worth it for the amount of times that poor Mike tried to open the refrigerator door in the morning, where he just walks up, reaches for where the handle used to be, hand swipes,
Oh
stares at the fridge, stares at the handle where it is now, reaches for where the handle used to be again. And this is like, you got to think about the amount of conditioning for, let's say you've had your refrigerator for 10 years and the handle's always been in one place, and how your brain doesn't process this. I will say, in Mike's defense, I've swiped the fridge several times myself, just reaching for just going, no, I'm used to the handle being there.
no.
So that was probably what, but we were there for that prank. So, well, in tonight's episode of Merlin's Barn, we're going to go out and find a random passerby, abduct them, and walk them in the barn in the dark and see if they can find their way out within 15 minutes.
That's literally any visitor.
You're right.
I've been here, and I don't think I could achieve that.
I like when people find the rooms that they haven't been in before and then they're creeped out.
I'm still convinced there might be a dragon somewhere in there.
I think there's still rooms I haven't been in, and I live here.
No, I think you've been in the whole place. But that does bring up the people who have gotten lost in the building and texted, "Can you come find me? I hear people, I hear footsteps on stairs, I hear doors opening and closing. I think I'm walking in circles," and I have to respond to them in a text going, "We will come find you. Where are you? And don't tell me you're standing next to a green Jeep."
It's like the maze from The Shining, but it's assembled out of Jeep parts.
That's so true.
Yes, yes. So our topic for tonight is really sort of like places away from home that we find home, or that become home for us, and that's going to sort of flow through from a couple stories I have to some things Tasha has to sort of something that all culminates in our past weekend. And I'll start off with like when my family moved to Maryland when I was in high school. I ended up with an inordinate amount of free time my senior year, and the end result was I ended up at that point having a Dunkin' Donuts be my second home, because 4 periods in a row I had absolutely nothing to do, and I would drive in my little red Volkswagen Beetle over to Dunkin' Donuts and just sit there and read and drink coffee and have chowder and eat donuts for 4 hours. And sometimes my friends would just find me and gather there. So when I went to college in Southern Maryland, first time drove into Lexington Park, I saw that there was a Master Donut, not Mr. Donut, which is an actual chain. This was Master Donut, which had escaped the chain, despite the fact that it turned out they were using all Mr. Donut stuff. And it said 24 hours in the window, and I was just like, okay, that is my place. So being an insomniac, and being that St. Mary's College lets you keep your car on campus freshman year, you did have to keep it in a parking lot that was so far from anything that they called it Guam.
No.
Yes, yes. So if you went, yeah,
I don't know that one. Oh no.
yeah. So if you wanted your car, you had to hike to Guam to get your car. So it'd be like 2 in the morning, and I was not a big drinker, and I had a lot of friends who were not big drinkers who would sort of wait around to see what Merlin was doing. So it started like late at night, early in the morning. I would just hike out to Guam, get in my bug, and go up to Master Donut and have a donut and some coffee and hang out there for a bit. What eventually started happening was everybody else started figuring out where my home was. And when I headed out, the rest of the gang would start piling in cars. So I'd get out there in my little red 1972 Volkswagen Beetle and pull in, and then 2 or 3 cars would pull in after me. And out would pour like 15 people who would then pour out to the Master Donut and hang out there for an hour or two. After this happened once or twice, there were 2 fellows that I ever saw in the Master Donut. I swear both of them never slept. There was the Indian fellow in the front who ran the counter and ran everything. And there was an extremely skinny older fellow in the back, usually puffing, and almost always puffing away on a cigarette back in the donut room. And we'd
Smoky
come.
donuts.
Yeah, they didn't taste like smoke, but I never thought about it back then. But yeah, he had his little paper hat on. It would be
The blues musician name, right?
Smoky donut.
I like that. Playing now, Smoky Donuts. And so it got to the point where everybody would check out at the end of the evening, and I'd go to pay, and the fellow at the counter would just hand me a dozen donuts and wave me on my way. And so after this happened 3 or 4 times, I said to him, I said, why am I not allowed to pay anymore? And he looked at me and he says, well, when the little red beetle pulls in, numerous other cars follow, all filled with paying customers. He says, therefore, you bring business and you are not to pay anymore.
You're the Pied Piper of donuts.
I never
That's a
thought
good
of it that way.
title.
So I eventually we got ourselves, a couple of us bought a rather nice die-cast Volkswagen Beetle that was like almost like a foot long, and it was red like mine. And we took it up one day and presented it to our friend at the counter, who we just always knew as Mr. Master Donut, because I don't know if I ever knew his name. I feel horrible about that. So we had that in college, and I'm sure we had other hangouts and stuff. I mean, there was like the Perkins, the IHOP, things like that. The best place was the Master Donut. After college, another place that I'm going to pick was my first 2 years teaching in Baltimore County. I taught at a school that has since been renamed, I think probably so people can ignore the fact that it was I think it was the opening to hell, honestly. I can't say much of anything nice about it.
There's a lot of Baltimore County public schools, though.
Yeah. So it was called Old Court Middle, and our department chair, Lou Fleury, God rest his soul, wonderful fellow. He was a carny who had spent years on the carnival circuit, where during the off season he would get the next couple classes towards his degree. And so he got his history degree, and then in his teaching certification, and then ended up as head of the history department at Old Court Middle. And so he'd usually have us out to the bar like once or twice a week, which we quickly called the library. And by my second year there, the principal, Jet Reed, another amazing person who has passed on, he realized that that going to the library after school was a thing for the faculty, and would often get on the announcements at the end of the day and just say, "Hi, there's going to be a tech committee meeting at the library at 4 o'clock. We look forward to seeing you there." The tech committee would meet over there, or just the whole school.
Yeah.
And so we ended up hanging out the most at a place, I think it was called the 5 Mile House, where And by partway through my second year of teaching, we were really there at least 3 out of 5 nights a week. I would say there were some weeks where there was probably like 4 nights that we were there. And it was one of those 1970s wood paneling. It was in a little strip mall with, I think, I think there was a sub shop or something. There was the same crew in there all the time. They got so used to us pulling in that they just sort of knew our cars and started pulling the beers. I often was driving my World War II Jeep because all the Beatles would be dead for some reason or other, and the little Jeep just kept driving. And I'd pull in, and by the time I got to the counter, my Guinness was just about ready. There was one time I walked out, and there was a note on my Jeep that said, "My family made a living off of these after the war. I owe you a beer, Fritz."
That's a lot right there.
So, so I was like, "What is going on?" And I walk in, and walk up to the bartender, and I said to him, I said, "Who's Fritz?" He says, "Oh, you missed him." He says, "I'll point him out next time." He says, "You went in the bathroom, and Fritz walked out the door and completely flipped out, came back in and borrowed a pen and paper." He says, "Fritz is an old German guy who hangs out here." So the next time I went to the bar, I pulled in the Jeep and walked in, and the bartender just pointed at the end of the bar. And I walked down, and I looked at the fellow. I said, "You must be Fritz." And he looks at me. He says, "You must be the Jeep owner." He says, "I'm buying you a beer." And my Guinness lit up at that point. And apparently, after the war, his family had run an auto shop, and all of these Jeeps were left all over Germany. So everybody was just using them as regular daily drivers. And he said the big thing his family made money off of was putting electric windshield wipers and sides and doors and everything on them. And he says, "Yeah," he says, "through the 1950s, we made a good living off of American Jeeps that were left there."
Would that still be the battery powered ones? The wipers?
No, they're electric, like just the 6-volt electric.
Okay, because like there were battery powered. No,
Nope, not that I know
this was like a.
of. I can always be wrong.
I would be wrong, which is more likely.
We're all hallucinating. None of us are actually here. Now the bar sort of ended with there were a lot of nights. This is back before cell phones were like totally common, and the bar thing came to the point where like the spouses would call the 5 Mile House to see if the husband or wife was there, and the spouses would wander out. At which point the barkeep would start making pizzas for us. But it sort of came to an end where there was one night that a bunch of us left, and Lou stayed especially late. I remember the following week made it through like Wednesday, and there had been no call to go to the library. And ran into Lou, and I said to him, I said, "What's going on?" He says, "I have stopped drinking." And I looked at him, I said, how is this possible? He says, "Well, this is what happened." He says, "I got home the other night." He says, "and all I remember was getting home." He says, "and in the morning I got up and I walked out in the driveway. My car was completely coated in eggs." He says, "So I looked at it and I hosed it off." And he says, "I was a couple minutes late to school." And he says, "When I got home," he says, "I said to my wife," he says, "I told my wife about the car being covered in eggs, and she started yelling at me." He says, "Apparently what happened was that night when I got home from the bar, I went to the refrigerator and grabbed an egg and took it up to our bedroom and walked in and looked at her and said, 'Dear, this egg is a symbol of our love,' and then fell unconscious and crushed it on the bed."
Oh
Whoa.
He says, "So I'm not allowed to go to the bar anymore." He says, "I'm not allowed to go to the library anymore." And that sort
no!
of
Does this mean she egged the car? Like straight up?
she's the one who egged the car.
Kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Props.
So that cut down on all of her drinking, and 5 Mile House is sadly no longer there. That's the one thing, is so many of these places that you find a little home in. I mean, I'll throw a last place in there, which was J. Patrick's. If you're a Baltimore person and you like Irish pubs, you might know of J. Patrick's, which was down at Locust Point by Fort McHenry. And J. Patrick's was run by old Mr. Patrick, who it's an Irish pub, was an old Irish fellow. His son, who was a history teacher in the county schools, helped him out there. And I think our friend John Nabicki introduced us to that place. It got to the point where there would be a group of us who somebody would make sure they got there early enough on Friday afternoon to get us our corner table. 3 or 4 nights a week, there was live Irish music there. It was very much like an old pub. The kids in the neighborhood would come up to the side door and get smokes or dinner or a few beers to take home to mom and dad. Had all the IRA members' photographs, of course, in 8x10 above the bar. There's a shillelagh up there too, where he didn't like language. So if your table got rather raucous and mouthy, he would wander up to your table and request that you toned down the language, as this is a family pub. And if you continued using foul language and being loud, he would then revisit your table with a shillelagh and escort you from the pub. And he kept it in a certain way too, and it was apparently his way of trying to keep the what we would call hipsters nowadays out. I mean, there was literally just black plastic bags covering holes in the ceiling. Nothing was really updated. He did update the furniture once, and I think he regretted it. And I just remember talking with him one night because we came in and our table, so and somebody, there was a group at our table, and the place was already full really early. And Mr. Patrick looks at me and says, "I'm so sorry." He says, "I don't know what else to do." He says, I have ceiling tiles that have fallen and I've left the holes. He says, I have stapled plastic bags to the ceiling. He says, I've deliberately not upgraded so many things and they're still showing up. He just wanted his little crowd there. And when he passed away, it shut down. So, but it was our home for several years. So, on that note, because I could keep babbling forever, and we know that.
This is what podcast.
Yeah, other home type things. I think you had a thought.
I think there might have been 3-ish spots that are relatively small.
Okay.
I think the first one that comes to mind would have to be Jimmy's art shop in Haverty Grace. So my mom went to college with this dude named Jimmy Burrell, I believe. If anyone knows Chainsaw Sally, he is the creator of her amazingness. I believe his wife April actually is the one who plays Sally in a lot of the movie videos. But so my mom had been friends with him, and at some point when I was in early high school, they reconnected, and Jimmy was running an art store in Haverty Grace, Maryland, and I was the art kid. My mom was like, okay, you want to learn drawing things? I'm going to take you to Jimmy's place. And so Wednesday nights, my mom, my brother, and I would track down all the way from northern Maryland down to Haverty Grace. Like, we would book it after school. And while my mom and brother went off to, like, the local coffee shop, I would stay and just, like, I don't know, you know when you feel like you're, like, in a master's, like, you're witnessing a master at work and you're just, like, mind blown the entire time?
Yes.
It was one of those. Like, anytime I walked in that store, it was just amazingness, and it was very much just, like, one of the places I wanted to be all the time at that point. So I think that was...
Is that still around, or?
No, unfortunately.
Oh.
I don't know if it was like a rent or what, because Jimmy's still living down there, but the store, unfortunately, I think probably around 2020 had to close.
Oh.
Yeah.
Another lost home.
Because I think there was a year where HCC was actually going to Jimmy's store for like their art kits for us to have at school.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that was like one of my favorite things. I was so excited, like, whoa, they're getting stuff for my dude. So that'll probably be the first one. The second one will probably have to be Beck's Place, the Serpent's Key. It is this little store that it's officially been there for a year. This little witchcraft-based store in Hanover. I think I started going because my mom was pushing it, because I don't know why. She just had like the feeling, the thought that like this is where I would like to go, I guess. So my mom started pushing, and it's one of those places where going there felt very instantly welcome. I felt safe, which as a high anxiety person, that just does not happen. Like I could easily go in there and let my guard down, and I wouldn't be looking over my shoulder every 2 seconds type deal. Um, and so I started going, talking to Beck a bit, getting to know them, and it became like I would have like a depression spiral at some points, and I would text them and be like, "Hey, I'm coming over for a cup of tea because I need to get out of the house before ice cream." I just go and exist there at this point.
Yeah,
Like,
which is just sort of a home type thing. It's a safe place where you feel welcome.
like I could just pop in. I can take Bowie, my dog, with me, and I'll just hang out and we'll chat, and it's so nice.
Yeah.
And I don't even have to like go there to chat with Beck or Michelle. I just kind of go and I sit, and I don't know. This is gonna sound weird, but like sometimes just the smell of that shop, whatever incense they burn on the regular, is just like the most calming, like at ease scent I've ever smelled.
Yeah.
So there's that.
There's that, and then
There's this place.
the barn where everybody, and speaking of smell, there's the people who literally show up and just because they need to walk into the shop and breathe in that old machinery smell,
Mhm.
that old barn smell. And then we were introduced to a new place this weekend that we were instantly felt like I was at home, which was Matt and Nicole took us out to Chicago to experience Sideshow Gelato. Matt, do you want to explain a little bit about that place and we can talk about our experiences there?
Yeah, I'll go into it. I'll touch on it a little bit, and then we might actually going to make this into a two-part, so we're not keeping you on a treadmill too long. Briefly, just a teaser to set things up. Sideshow Gelato is a gelato shop and performing arts venue that I became aware of this fever dream project a couple of years ago by a man named Jay Bliznick out in Chicago, who had this dream to do this uh, shop for wild flavors of gelato and also be a home port for people who are learning the sideshow and performance arts to hone their skills, develop their skills, be able to perform in the shop environment there in between still having a paying gig of scooping gelato. And then now the shop is opened and I was able to bring friends and let them experience it. And I said, because we're running up on the clock and don't want you passing out on the treadmill or driving past your home if you're trying to go home.
Keep doing your bit, and then I've already figured out a way to lead this into a part two. So
Okay.
we're in good shape.
Then basically can talk a whole lot about just what it's like to be in that environment. But since Merlin's giving me the go ahead, I'll say this. Basically, there's a podcast I was listening to when Jay Bliznick had managed to convince the podcast host to listen to him and try this gelato that he was creating during COVID in his kitchen.
I did not know this started with a podcast. That's amazing.
Yes, it actually started with a podcast. And then the pitch for the Kickstarter to begin raising funds for this was on the podcast. Immediately upon hearing the pitch, I went ahead and signed up on this Kickstarter and placed an order for four pints of gelato and a couple of T-shirts. And as part of the pitch, Jay said he was looking for equity partners to actually be capital investors to have shares of stock in the company. And I said I would be interested. And that was in the spring of 21, late summer 21. I spoke to Jay in a Zoom meeting. It was late winter of 22 before everything was actually inked. It took until spring of 23 to actually get the shop open enough for the gala opening party. And then it was June of 23 that the actual opening happened. And Nicole and I have been out to the shop now 3 times. The most recent was just this past week. During the course of developing this, I'll get into the flavors later.
That could be the next episode.
Yeah, but Jay had investors that wanted him to drop the shop idea and just do the gelato and then sell it wholesale. But Jay had a passion for the sideshow community of performing arts, fire eaters, sword swallowers, the carnies, really.
Weirdos.
Yes.
Ultimate weirdos.
Yep. Magicians, balloon artists, very rarely, with some exception, clowns, because clowns can't be trusted.
Boy.
Can't sleep, clowns will eat me. Can't sleep, clowns will eat me.
And I will just finish with this. This is my passion about why my passion about this is. Robots and automation have done amazing things for manufacturing, for cars, computers. The computer recording this podcast has got microchips in it that can never have been done by a human hand. They're so fine. Robots are great for that. A robot is not going to do fire eating for you.
No.
It'll explode. That could be a show in itself.
Yes,
That'd
it
be
could
pretty
be.
fascinating.
We do have the robot here that, well,
It makes cotton candy.
makes cotton candy, but it really involves you making the cotton candy inside its
You're
cavernous
just
chest.
holding the cotton candy stick thing.
So there's
Eat a brat.
there's a place that robots, computers, AI so far cannot touch, and I can't fathom how they could touch. I cannot see an AI anything performing blockhead and it be of any interest to you.
If you don't know what blockhead is, you need to look it up before the next episode.
And look it up to the extent you want. I personally am fascinated by the mechanics of how magic works, and when I learn about a magic trick, I'm actually more interested in watching it be performed. Others like the magic and not knowing how it's done, so I will not spoil anything for you about how anything is done. But that's my passion behind it, is the individuals, the people. That's also Jay's, and that's why he fought and is fighting now to keep the shop open and keep it funded, and not selling out to just making the crazy gelato flavors, because it's the people that matter. Just as all of you have chosen to listen to us, we value each of you listeners, and you value us because you're taking the time every other week to listen to our show. We appreciate that. And
We question your sanity and your life choices, of course, but we do appreciate it.
and if you're not familiar with people in the performing arts, and I wasn't before I got involved, I was just an outsider looking in. As I've spent time at the shop, I've learned how many of these individuals are really actually introverted, and they live they live their lives rather closed to people. They have a performance they put on. They have a stage persona that they use. But it can be
180 type deal.
But it can be very, very different to actually just sit and talk with them. And there's amazing people and amazing stories. And every one of them, no matter their background, no matter what their performing art piece that they do is, they're all individuals to be valued. And that's what matters to me.
I think that's what we'll get into the next episode. Is the people who make up the people and the stories that make up Sideshow Gelato, a place that we saw for the first time this past weekend, and Rory's sitting here going, I live far too far away from this because I want to go hang out with the amazing people that we met there. So hang on for 2 weeks, look up Blockhead, look up Sideshow Gelato. If you're in Chicago and you haven't been there, then
go. experience it.
Yeah, you need to go. You need to find out when their shows are and stuff. And in 2 weeks, we'll be back with stories of our journey to Chicago and the amazing people and shows that we saw at Sideshow Gelato. So, anything else to add?
Nope. I'm looking forward to the show in 2 weeks to hear Merlin and Tasha's experience there. It was my first opportunity to bring friends to the shop. I share it on Facebook all the time. I share photos and stories, but I was able to, for the first time, physically share in person the shop with friends, and I look forward to hearing what they have to say about it. We talked some on the flight back, but
It was an amazing experience. So winding down, so that you haven't like run off your treadmill or fallen off of something at this point, because we've run a little bit longer than usual.
this is your commute. You've driven right past your house, and you wind up back at work again. I am deeply sorry.
You're just driving in circles in your cul-de-sac, waiting for us to stop talking, and while the neighbors are staring at you.
Make it end.
So, as always, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate that you take the time to listen to us. And also, as always, if you have stories that tie in with what you've heard here, if you've gone on those detours, taken that turn, gone down a road and found that place, that new home, or met those interesting people because you decide to go that direction that day, send those stories into us. You can find us on Instagram. It's Merlin's Barn. Or you can, and if you want to send a story in, the best thing to do is to email it. Yes, we have technology.
Wow.
Yeah. Hot stuff. Email
We're
it.
not opposed to carrier pigeons, if you can pull that off.
I
Freaking
do
carrier.
like a good pigeon. Hey.
Yeah, freaking carrier pigeons would be awesome. I wouldn't know what to do with them when they got here.
Or corvids. They're pretty smart too.
Okay, we'll go with that.
You send messages by crow. We are totally in favor.
Oh, absolutely.
Smoke signals are just right out.
Can't.
We can't interpret that yet, but give us a year or two. But emails, if you're not sending anything by bird, email us at merlinsbarn@gmail.com, and that is MERLINSBARN@gmail.com. And we'll sign off, and you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for listening.
Good night.
Bye.